Feast your eyes on the myth of medieval knights brawling with turkey legs and brandishing swords at the banquet table. Pop culture has toasted to these images. Burly knights clutching mead in one hand and gnawing on cartoonishly huge turkey legs with the other, their trusty swords never far from the gravy boat. But before you polish your helmet and RSVP yes to the next medieval feast, let's carve up this turkey tail. Here's a drumstick-sized reality check. Turkeys only waddled onto European plates in the 16th century, long after most knights had hung up their armor and switched to less hazardous hobbies, like managing estates or mastering chess moves. The closest thing to a turkey leg on a knight's platter was a chicken desperately trying to blend in. So what actually sizzled at these banquets? Think roast beef, pork, or prestige poultry. Swan if you were fancy, peacock if you wanted extra flair. Swords stayed sheathed. Knives and spoons ruled the table, while forks were still vacationing in Italy. Try cutting your steak with a broadsword, and you'd earn some very puzzled stares, and probably lose your dessert. Despite Hollywood's hunger for drama, chivalry demanded good manners. Pass the salt, don't impale it. No duels over drumsticks, just the very real threat of indigestion. And that's a gut-busting truth worthy of a toast. While knights relished their meals with swords in hand, ancient civilizations were marked by monumental constructions like the pyramids, often thought to be built by slaves under harsh conditions. Picture Hollywood's go-to blockbuster, sun-baked slaves lugging colossal stone blocks while overseers crack whips like they're headlining history's dullest rodeo. This is the Hollywood pyramid building saga, about as historically accurate as dressing your dog as Cleopatra. Here's the myth. Relentless legions of miserable slaves built the pyramids under tyrannies so brutal they'd need SPF 1000. But hold that torch. This whole epic was cooked, and overcooked, mostly in the 19th century, courtesy of historians who apparently majored in melodrama. The facts? Archaeologists uncovered workers' villages near the pyramids, stocked with amenities like bread, beer, and, brace yourself, pharaonic-era healthcare. These folks didn't live in misery. They had decent digs, not prison camps. Many were skilled laborers, not slaves, even leaving workplace graffiti. Drunkards of Menkaura, possibly the world's oldest office banter. Slavery existed in ancient Egypt. Sure, but not blockbuster scale, and definitely not among the main pyramid crew, who were well-fed locals with frequent bouts of onion breath. So if pyramid building came with carbs, beer, and bragging rights, where's my invitation to the ancient LinkedIn? Just as tales of forced labor built the pyramids formed legends of the past, the American Wild West became famous for its dramatic daily duels at high noon. Forget everything cowboy movies taught you. Daily high noon showdowns were about as common as honest poker in Tombstone. Pop culture loves that image. Dusty streets, two grimy cowboys squinting each other down, while a lone tumbleweed dares to waltz through the crossfire. The legend says every frontier town had a daily duel, maybe squeezed in between raising the flag and sweeping out the saloon. But reality's drier than Arizona sand. Actual quick-draw duels were rarer than a teetotaler at a whiskey bar. Showdowns weren't plastered on town notice boards, and the average Joe cared more about high-noon lunch than a premature trip to Boot Hill. Even in wild spots like Dodge City, there were no event tickets or schedules set by gunfire. Most disputes ended with fists, lawyers, or the world's deadliest weapon, the maternal glare. Lawmen were there to keep the theatrics in check. In real life, town clocks saw more daily danger than most citizens. The truth? For every bullet fired, there were 3 quilting bees and at least 1 tea party, just not nearly as box office friendly. The Wild West's iconic shootouts evoke as much imagery as the popular, yet inaccurate idea of Vikings wearing horned helmets into battle. Picture a bellowing Viking, storming ashore in a shiny horned helmet, Hollywood's favorite historical fib. The horned helm? More Wagnerian opera costume than Viking war gear. Despite every Halloween outfit and Saturday morning cartoon insisting otherwise, there's zero evidence Vikings ever strapped cattle accessories to their heads before setting sail. Blame the Romantic-era artists and 19th century opera costume designers, not the seafaring Norse. Archaeologists, torchlight in hand, muddy to the knees, keep unearthing iron helmets that scream business, not bovine flair. The famous Gjermundbu helmet? No horns in sight unless you count the kind that held mead. Had Vikings really gone full-horned mode, door frames would have been their mortal enemies, and chiropractors would have looted just as often. Sure, ceremonial helmets with horns or wings existed, just not among Vikings. But thanks to pop culture's flair for drama over accuracy, horned helmets will swagger through our imaginations long after the last archaeological dig has closed shop. From Viking myths to ancient Egypt, Cleopatra is often remembered as the embodiment of Egyptian royalty and culture. When you picture Cleopatra, do you see an Egyptian goddess wrapped in linen, her eyeliner sharp enough to assassinate a Roman general? Time to recalibrate that pharaoh filter. Because Cleopatra was about as Egyptian as a souvlaki stand in the Valley of the Kings. Legend crowns her as the ultimate Egyptian queen. But her family tree didn't just branch, it stubbornly zigzagged back to Greece. Cleopatra was the last of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Macedonian Greek clan that preferred feta over falafel and spoke Greek for 300 years while calling Egypt home. Yet Cleopatra wasn't your run-of-the-mill Hellenistic power player. Unlike her relatives, who probably needed Google Translate for hieroglyphics, she actually learned Egyptian and sold herself as a true hometown pharaoh. She pulled double duty, channeling ISIS for the locals while serving up Greek chic when the politics demanded. In short, she was the original influencer, effortlessly switching personas for every crowd, #Chosh cultural cosplay. That's how you rule an empire and still snag invites to all the hottest Roman and Egyptian soirees. While Cleopatra's identity is tied to Egypt, there is a misconception linking the Nazi salute's origins back to Roman citizens. Did ancient Romans really fling their arms around like overzealous orchestra conductors? And did that somehow spark the Nazi salute? Picture it, stern-faced senators thrusting arms out like bad extras in a sword-and-sandal soap opera. But hold your laurels, toga enthusiasts. The idea that Romans invented the Roman salute, paraded by Nazis, is about as credible as ordering pizza and claiming you invented Italy. This myth didn't steamroll out of ancient Rome. It crept from the oil-smeared studios of 18th and 19th century artists and playwrights, who treated historical accuracy as more of a gentle suggestion. Not a single marble bust or dusty scroll shows Roman crowds tossing arms in fascist formation. In reality, Roman greetings were more about respectful nods, not synchronized mass aerobics. Enter Mussolini and Hitler, both desperate for a spectacle that screamed, "Imperium!" They lifted this made-up gesture straight from the creative minds of artists, not ancient texts. If anyone's to blame, it's those imaginative painters who probably caused more historical confusion than a semester of Wikipedia vandalism. The closest thing to a true Roman salute? Raising wine cups at dinner, usually followed by hiccups, not Heil. Yet this hand-waving fantasy still muddles history. A gesture for the ages, just not the ones you'd expect. As some myths trace the Nazi salute back to Rome, others recall how a simple commodity like tea ignited the flames of the American Revolution. Forget muskets and midnight rides. America's first explosive brew was piping hot tea. That's right. Before coffee perked up revolutions, tea was the original troublemaker. The British weren't just messing with colonial caffeine fix for sport. They slapped a tax on tea to rescue their sinking East India Company. Picture Parliament as 18th century venture capitalists trying to keep their favorite startup afloat by making your daily sip a luxury. Back then, tea was basically the colonial Instagram. If you wanted serious clout, you sipped it, pinky perfectly raised, at every social gathering. But when King George and Parliament threw a taxation tea party without inviting the colonists, America replied with the ultimate RSVP, "Nope, we're not footing that bill." So Boston patriots dressed as Mohawk Indians dumped 342 chests of British tea into the harbor, turning the sea into New England's first and last iced tea tidal wave, briefly making Boston's harbor more caffeinated than a modern co-working space. Britain's sequel? The Coercive Acts, a royal tantrum with legislative muscle. Suddenly, nothing united the colonies faster than this ruined cuppa. Tea went from table talk to trader's brew. Anyone caught sipping Earl Grey looked about as trustworthy as a lobster with a British accent. If only the crown had taxed kale, we might still be bowing to the pound. Just as tea is often mythologized as the sole cause of revolution, there is a common misunderstanding about the moon influencing tides only when full. Ever blamed a full moon for wild waves or your neighbor's wilder parties? The myth is as catchy as a werewolf's midnight howl. Tides only turn dramatic under those glowing lunar spotlights. But sorry, moonlit mischief makers, the ocean's drama doesn't RSVP just for full moon premieres. Gravity's the real playwright here, and it's on a relentless writing binge. Every day, the moon and sun duet to stir Earth's tides, not just on full moon nights fit for a TikTok aesthetic. So those tidal showstoppers, dubbed spring tides, don't play once a month, but twice. Both full and new moons get their starring roles. Meanwhile, when the moon's chilling in its quarter phase, the tides pipe down. Neap tides are the ocean's introverts, bringing milder highs and laid-back lows. The ocean doesn't wait for lunar PR events to steal the show. Sorry, werewolves, your transformation schedule isn't synced with the tidal charts. On Earth, gravity's dance never takes a night off. Misconceptions about the moon's full impact on tides parallel the oversimplified idea that everyone in the Civil War was simply clad in blue or gray. Hook! Imagine showing up to America's most explosive family feud dressed in last season's colors. Now picture everyone else rolling in sporting an entirely different palette. Fashion emergency? Understatement of the century. Myth. The blue versus gray story is as neat as a detergent commercial, but the Civil War wardrobe? Total laundry chaos. The Union aimed for blue, and the Confederates shot for gray. Yet 1861 wasn't exactly Amazon Prime for uniform deliveries. Facts. Supplies disappeared faster than a cavalry charge, and Confederate grays either faded into oblivion or just never showed up. Many Johnny Rebs rocked butternut, best described as vintage mud meets sad potato, courtesy of bargain bin dye and a hefty dose of desperation. Union troops sometimes sported brown or even horizon blue, depending on what the quartermaster excavated from the bottom of the trunk. Early state militias? Oh, they went full rainbow. Greens, reds, even amateur European cosplay. Punch. Think color clashes are just a modern problem? You've never seen a Union soldier in polka dots. Friendly fire? More like a fashion faux pas. Bridge. So next time you imagine the Civil War, this wasn't some boring chessboard. The one golden rule? Don't put your faith in anyone dressed like camouflage for dirt. While the Civil War had complex uniforms and allegiances, the Mona Lisa is sometimes thought of without acknowledging the layers behind her worldwide fame. Sure, the Mona Lisa's smile is legendary, but her fame wasn't always what you'd call Vogue cover status. Despite what museum gift shops want you to believe, the idea that Mona has always been the queen bee of the art hive? Well, that's a little cracked. For centuries, she was just another Renaissance lady rocking that mysterious, maybe I know something you don't smirk, barely more noticeable than the Louvre's wallpaper. Honestly, before 1911, Mona was less girl with the pearl earring and more girl nobody notices at the party. Her real claim to superstardom? Getting stolen. The 1911 heist was the Renaissance version of going viral. Imagine if TMZ existed back then, she'd have trended non-stop. Public outcry exploded. Art snobs and casual gawkers alike clamored for her return. Mona's thief did more for her career than any critic ever could. Take that, publicists. Ironically, it wasn't her enigmatic charm but her disappearance that launched her to Beyoncé-level fame. So how did one missing persons report turn Mona from wallflower into the world's most wanted portrait? Time to retrace her steps. Much like the enduring image of the Mona Lisa, Franklin D. Roosevelt is often portrayed without awareness of his use of a wheelchair. If Hollywood had its way, FDR spent his presidency power-walking the White House like he was training for spin class. Watch enough TV movies, and you'd swear Franklin Roosevelt was running marathons daily, suit, tie, and all, radiating boundless energy and battle-ready swagger. There he is, striding heroically at rallies. There again, standing tall during speeches, never so much as a wobble. Here's where the movie magic kicks in. FDR's wheelchair got less screen time than the White House butler. Hollywood loves an indomitable leader and casually sweeps inconvenient facts under the rug, like polio paralyzing Roosevelt's legs years before he ever set foot in the Oval Office. In reality, he only stood with heavy metal leg braces and discreet human support, going to great and often secret lengths to keep this under wraps. News photographers were practically on spacewatch duty to snap his wheelchair. It was easier to catch a UFO than a candid shot of FDR looking vulnerable. All this smoke and mirrors? To preserve the myth of presidential invincibility in an era not quite ready for straight talk about disability. As FDR's image can be misleading, so too is the story that Captain Cook was instantly worshipped by Hawaiians as a god. Imagine touchdown on an island and instantly scoring a VIP pass to living deity status. Ultimate travel upgrade, right? Now rewind to 1778, when Captain Cook sashayed onto Hawaiian shores. You might expect a celestial fan club, but nope, just curious islanders scrutinizing the latest in sunburn fashion and suspiciously shaped hats. So where does the myth sprout that Hawaiians instantly crowned Cook as the god Lono, especially since he showed up during a religious festival? Historians debate. Did Hawaiians genuinely think he was divine, or were they just humoring another swaggering stranger? The truth: their welcome followed intricate rituals. Think less, "Worship me, O mortals," more, "Let's eyeball this pale visitor and see what he's packing." Sure, Cook and his crew got the royal treatment, but Hawaiian hospitality wasn't code for cult of the confused. Apparently, all it took to make a Hawaiian god was a ship, some ghostly white skin, and impeccable bad timing. If Cook was divine, it was more a cameo appearance, until locals realized he couldn't even catch a wave. His god gig was short-lived, and the only thunder he brought came from cannon fire, not celestial lightning bolts. From myths about Captain Cook's reception in Hawaii, we move to Rosie the Riveter, who is sometimes credited with single-handedly powering Dabu-Dabu-2 factories. Picture Rosie the Riveter in her iconic blue coveralls, not just flexing, but single-handedly cranking out tanks with one hand and bombers with the other. Legend has it, Rosie powered every wartime factory, and if that were true, she deserves more than a flex. Maybe her own superhero franchise, or swapping her face for Lincoln's on the penny. But alas, the myth pumps up Rosie's biceps beyond all reason. She wasn't a lone, rivet-running wonder, nor a secret octopus in a polka-dot bandana. Rosie was actually a composite creation, crafted to boost morale and coax women into the wartime workforce. Before the war, women made up less than 30% of U.S. manufacturing jobs. By 1945, about 6 million women had joined war-related industries, many gripping a rivet gun for the first time. But if you think sheer grit and a snappy scarf held those planes together, I'm afraid the aircraft still needed nuts, bolts, and a whole lot of skilled hands. As for the "We Can Do It" poster, it was practically a wallflower in its own day, only skyrocketing to pop culture fame decades later. Real Rosies faced tough work, lower pay, and a not-so-subtle side order of go back home when the war's over. Flexing was definitely encouraged, just not indefinitely. Just as Rosie the Riveter is mythologized, so is the claim that all ancient Olympians competed completely nude for glory. Imagine today's athletes swapping spandex for nothing but sheer, unfiltered confidence, all in the name of ancient Greek glory. No, this isn't the latest reality show. It was standard practice at the original Olympic Games, which burst onto the scene in 776 BCE in Olympia with an all-male lineup and 0 wardrobe malfunctions. They simply skipped the wardrobe altogether. Early Olympians ditched their togas and competed in the buff, a bold tradition called gymnos, the sneaky root behind the word gymnasium. But their nudity wasn't just a flex for the gods, or a chance to show off abs worthy of a marble statue. Stripping down honored the deities and put the ideal male form on full display. Some say it also curbed cheating. After all, the only gear check needed was a quick once-over. No swords, no secret jars of performance-enhancing olive oil hidden in those loincloths. Events ranged from foot races to wrestling, and nothing quite ruins your day like losing a naked Greco-Roman wrestling match in front of your buddies. The crowds were mostly men. Married women caught peeking risked the death penalty. Not exactly the best date night spoiler. As for post-event showers, let's just say trading notes took on a whole new meaning. Ready for the next event? Spoiler alert, they eventually did invent uniforms, because even ancient Greeks knew some things just couldn't stay nude forever. From the myths surrounding ancient athletes, we shift to the belief that everyone at the Alamo died fighting to the last man. We all know the Alamo, the legendary last stand where not a single Texan surrendered, right? Well, history's a bit messier than your favorite Hollywood screenplay. Turns out, the only thing bigger than the Alamo's walls is the myth towering over it. The popular tale? Every defender died in a blaze of glory, guns blazing, refusing to back down. But modern research sneaks in through the back door. Yes, almost all defenders bit the dust, but a handful may have tried to surrender, slip away, or, let's be honest, were just terribly bad at hide and seek. Instead of a heroic slow-motion montage, those captured received Santa Anna's version of a stern talking to. Summary execution for most. Eyewitness accounts? Messier than spilled chili, ranging from epic heroics to grim mop-up operations. Meanwhile, non-combatants like women, children, and enslaved people were spared, living to spin ever more dramatic yarns. So did every defender fight to the last man? In folklore, absolutely. In reality, some never got the chance, and not every story fits the legend. Hollywood endings? Think again. Finally, the story of the Alamo's last stand stands beside the falsely attributed quote by Marie Antoinette about letting them eat cake. Marie Antoinette, fashion icon, scandal magnate, and apparently the patron saint of pastry-based burns. Picture late 18th century France, where famine was as common as powdered wigs, and the rumor mill churned out butter-laden gossip. Enter the most notorious royal roast of all time. Let them eat cake, allegedly served up by the queen herself when told peasants were starving. If this were an ad campaign, it bombed harder than my last soufflé attempt. Me-ith. Marie Antoinette dropped this ultimate royal mic moment, either showcasing legendary indifference or inventing history's first baking pun. Fact. There's not a crumb of evidence she ever said it. Blame Rousseau. He penned a similar line years earlier, but credited it to a different royale. Historians agree, Marie's real culinary legacy is zilch, unless you count the humble pie history served her. The phrase stuck because nothing beats a zinger you can plaster on protest signs or bakery windows. Sorry, Marie. Your recipe for infamy had more political dough than actual dessert.